A couple of weeks ago, my childhood friend Marcus got out of the military. This wasn't a surprise to a lot of people, but if I'm being honest, it was a little odd to me. To most, they saw how much he talked about missing home, how much work frustrated him, and how he swore he was going to kick our asses in COD the next chance he got. What surprised me, though, was that Marcus was a rule follower. That's how he'd made sergeant in 4 years, after all. He didn't steal, break rules, or step out of line. The military is a great place for men like that, as far as career paths go. In the real world, not so much. Nevertheless, when Marcus invited me to his new house a few days ago, I was excited to spend some much-needed time face-to-face. I wasn't the only one who attended that night. There was our other 2 friends, Kyle and Paul, Paul's girlfriend, and a few of his wife's friends. This was the first time we had got to see the 2 outside of the initial welcome home they did with their families, and without the presence of those families, it felt as if this was our first actual face-to-face. The girls quickly took over the living room of the house with stories of drama and TikTok trends, so Marcus pulled us guys out to the detached garage next to the house. There, we found that there were a few lawn chairs already set up, and a mini-fridge with beer nestled in the corner. One might say a man's dream come true. Our conversations that night didn't differ that much from our usual Discord calls. Who sucked the most at video games? Nonsensical questions like, is a hot dog a taco? And who was the greasiest bastard on Trailer Park Boys? As the night wore on, and the drinks flowed, we began to ask Marcus about his military career, now that it was over. He was a good sport, answering our more mundane questions with laughter and half-drunk explanations of nuances we wouldn't understand even if we were sober. As we prodded, we got braver with our interrogations, until Kyle asked, "I've been watching this guy on YouTube, right? He does scary stories that are about the military. Not like getting shot at but like Bigfoot and ghosts and shit. You ever had anything like that?" Marcus's face immediately shifted from happy to uncomfortable. In retrospect, I should have been waiting for this to happen. Someone to ask a question too far, ruin the mood of the night. I guess I figured that it would have been the obligatory, "Have you ever killed anyone?" Or, "Have you ever been shot at?" That we knew better than to ask. "You don't have to answer that," Paul said quickly. No, it's okay. Just grab me another Coors, will ya?" I nodded and stood up, going to the fridge. I was out too, and had been looking for an excuse to get out of the lawn chair. I've had a few incidences, funny enough they were always at home, never really overseas. I heard stories from the older guys about stuff overseas, but the supernatural stuff always happened at home for me. I know it's weird, but whatever. Anyway, you guys know where I was stationed. Big ol' Airbase, right? Well, that fucker was old. Real old. My hangar was built in like the 60s, but some of the stuff on that base was there way before it was even built. Well, when I first showed up to my unit, our corporals would try to scare us younger guys by telling us about the base ghost. You can no shit look it up, it's even on our base's webpage. Basically, back when they built the base, it was all swamp and farmland. Nothing was on it but a few farms, but it's really close to some strategic inlets, which is why they built it there back in the day. One of these farms, though, had a little cemetery on it, right near where the runway was supposed to go. It was a mom and 2 kids. Now, I have no clue why they did it like this, but they moved the mom's grave to one side and the kids to the other. Well, that was a major fuck up, because now the mother's spirit walks around the base, trying to find her kids. He's right. It's right here on the website. What the fuck? Paul laughed, turning his phone around to show us. Sure enough, the website was an article on the ghost of the base, and the URL ended with a .mil. This didn't seem to cheer Marcus up, but he gave a weak smile. I told you, it's all real. To be honest, I didn't believe it at the time. I thought my corporals were just trying to fuck with me. I thought. Well, it doesn't matter what I thought. The first time I saw anything, it was years after I first heard about her. About the mother. Dude, when I say it was fucked, it was literally October the first time it happened. A few days before, one of our pilots, like the one in that article, was on approach and did a go-around because he saw a woman on the flight line at like 11 at night. He did 3 of those until they landed. Co-pilot saw it too, said it looked like a woman was walking across the flight line, but by the time the "follow me" truck got over there, whatever it was gone. Wait, How the fuck did they see someone down there at 11 at night? I can barely see those trees across the street from here and it's not even 9. Kyle asked. NVGs, man. We wear night vision goggles when we fly. You can literally see the whole runway, even when the lights are turned off. How do you think we landed in dirt airstrips overseas at night? Kyle's face flustered and shrugged. Anyway, that happened on a Friday, and the next Monday me and my lance corporal went out to take inventory of the planes like we did every morning. We did them at 6 a.m. every day before the workday started, and by then before the sun came up. That morning we had a fog come in off the ocean, so we couldn't really see shit. Couldn't even make out the trees on the other side of the flight line. And it was quiet, dude. No birds, or cicadas, nothing. After we put our stuff down in our shop like we usually did, we got to stepping. We walked out and began shooting the shit, just about dumb little stuff. Eventually, we got to talking about what had happened with that pilot. Dude, did you hear about what happened to Mugshot and his crew? Single quote. Yeah man, crazy shit. I heard from James that they're going to get a talking to from the CO. Apparently the command is pissed. Single quote. As we talked, we got to the next plane and started up inside of it. I began filling out the inventory log, and I had a full view of my lance. He took out his flashlight and started counting the stuff we had to check off. Why are they pissed? Single quote. Because, dude, it makes them look bad. Their pilots saw a ghost on the runway? Come on, that's hard for the CO to tell his boss. Thud, thud, thud. A series of bangs sounded from the back of the plane. We both jumped a little, but sometimes the wind would move the flight control surfaces around, making them bang. I was a little shaken, but I just figured it had to be a coincidence. We gave each other a nervous smile, and I asked him. Jesus. What, you don't believe them? He shook his head and walked over to me, finished with his counting. We stepped back out into the early morning, with my lance saving his response until we were both off the plane. The fog was a little thinner, so we could barely make out the tree line on the other side of the runway. It was maybe 150 yards from where we were. Nah dude, fuck that. There's no way there's some ghost bitch floating across the runway. No sooner than he said that, a shrieking cry came from across the flight line. The scream instantly sent every hair on my body to stand at attention, and I swear my buddy's hair bristled up like a cat. Our eyes snapped open, straining wide at the early morning black, searching for any sign of movement or contrast in the weak light produced by our squadron's hangar lights. Our ears strained and itched, searching for a noise to break the unbearable silence followed by the scream. Nothing. Not a step, a tap, a crunch of gravel. We waited in silence for what had to be 15 seconds, but it might as well have been 15 hours. Did you Jew? A second scream cut through the fog, closer this time. This time, it sounded like our side of the runway, the shriek cutting through the still air and stabbing at our eardrums with the same shrill power as an old jet engine. I instinctually covered my ears, and I wanted as my lance jumped back into the plane. Fuck, I cursed and I ran in after him. I caught up with him pretty quickly, and grabbed the back of his collar. He flung his arms wildly and caught my cheek, but I pulled him down quickly to the floor. We're gonna get trapped. We need to go, I shouted at him. Thud. This time, we knew it wasn't the wind. My buddy pointed his flashlight down the cargo hold and turned it on. Illuminated in the beam, was a middle-aged woman in a brown dress. Her brown hair was loose around her shoulders and matted like a wild animal's fur. What stuck out to me was her face. The woman's face was illuminated in a pale gray light from the flashlight, making her skin appear a dull gray. Her mouth was snarled and her face contorted into an expression of not just rage, but desperation. Her eyes were her most inhumane feature. I swear on my own mother's grave that they reflected the light back at us like an animal's would. They were two discs of light that looked like they were more at home coming from the base of a tree line, not this woman in the back of our plane. We were immobilized in fear. For the time being, she didn't move, and neither did we. Time seemed to stretch again, and it was dead silent in that plane. We didn't even take a breath. Suddenly, her head twitched to the left, like a bird when it hears a noise, and I swear, the most unnerving thing wasn't when she screamed, but it was the gasp she took right before. A sharp, quick inhale, but it was so quiet in there it was unmistakable. Your imagination doesn't need to breathe. Tricks of the light or hallucinations don't need to breathe. Your mind goes around all those little details and focuses on the big show. But she did, and screamed so loud I thought I wasn't going to be able to hear again. I grabbed my friend, tore him off the floor, and we shoved each other through the door. We took off and sprinted across the ramp back towards the hangar, and even back when I ran track I don't think I ever moved that quick. When we got there, we slammed that door as quickly as we could and looked through the window back at the plane. Behind it, we saw the first red of dawn coloring the sky, dot and two pricks of light coming from the open door. We stayed in there until the sun came out in force and burnt up all that fog. By the time we were willing to come out, she was gone. Marcus crushed the beer can that was in his hand, throwing it into the trash. It was quiet in the garage, and my own hair was bristling. Marcus was shaking, and a bit of sweat was poking through his t-shirt. We didn't press him anymore that night, and I left a little bit after that. I've tried to rationalize it in my own head, maybe he really was just tired or sick. But that detail about the woman's breath still gives me chills just thinking about it. Maybe you guys have a better explanation. Or maybe, there really was something in those planes.